rector of St. John's, and I've been on sabbatical since June. And I can't express how grateful I am to Kevin and Bill, our church wardens, and Deacon Lori, and Mother Jeanette, and Linda, who stepped in to do the parish communications when our administrator quit just as I was going away, and to all of you who kept this place going in my absence. Knowing how many balls I had in the air and was just leaving there to fall where they may, made it kind of hard for me to go. And I never completely was able to shake the feeling that I was playing hooky. But I made a plan for this sabbatical 5 years ago. And in spite of all of my second thoughts, a deeper wisdom told me to stick to that plan. And it turned out that I really needed to. It was helpful in a strange kind of way that I immediately came down with COVID. My sabbatical began on Thursday. On Friday, my daughter graduated from Casa Grande High School. Saturday, we had a nice party in her honor with family and friends in attendance, and by Sunday night, I was starting to have a scratchy throat and a strange sort of headache that turned into fever and chills. And I spent the next 3 days sleeping on the couch in the garage and coughing for another 10 days or so after that. But by the time I was ready to get up, I had begun to let go. I had started to get lost. And getting lost was what I really needed. I needed to get lost with respect to my professional persona, my priestly and pastoral role, my stature in the community, my job performance and managerial expertise, and ecclesiastical discipline. I needed to be lost to you. And I pretty much stayed that way for 3 months, except for a few brief, stealthy incursions back into the world of St. John's, such as the call I took in the dead of night from Larry Temple's son, Robin, asking me to come to the hospital to be with the family and say prayers and administer the final anointing. It turned out to be a summer of loss for a lot of us. Besides my own share of the loss of Larry and Dennis Adams, this was the summer my oldest brother turned 60. My 2 other brothers had to cancel at the last minute their plans to attend Risa's graduation because both of their wives' fathers died within the same week, one after a long illness, the other out of the blue from a heart attack. My parents couldn't make it either because they were in the final stages of emptying their country home in the hills west of Madison, Wisconsin, of a lifetime's accumulation of books and antiques, and getting ready to leave behind their garden and their view of the forest and move into a senior apartment complex in town. It was also the summer that Meg and I helped our only child pack up her things and drove her down to Berkeley and moved her into her dormitory there. And it was this loss that hit me the hardest. The sudden absence of Risa in our home. The the end of her childhood that it represented, the regrets about ways I could have been a better father during the time she lived with me, the fact now obvious that I am no longer young. Missing my daughter mingled in my heart with deep sorrow over the world we were sending her out into. I don't know about you, but Jeremiah's words this morning about God's judgment coming like a hot wind from the desert, too much to bear, well, it was a little too on the nose for those of us who lived through the week we just had. The ancient prophet saw the imminent fall of Jerusalem to the armies of Babylon in a vision of more than just a national catastrophe, but as the unmaking of the uninhabited world that God had created. But what he saw figuratively, we now see happening literally. We've only begun to understand what we have lost, what we are losing, what we stand to lose. I have to tell you, there were times this summer when I had to let go of bearing all this grief bravely and surrender to the weight of it. Let it bear me down onto the earth. Let the sobs come and the tears flow. It was a summer of loss and getting lost, but these were balanced out by a positive undertaking. It was also a summer of trying my best to come home. In July, we marked our 12th anniversary of moving here to Sonoma County. I've never really had the chance to get to know the place. So this summer, I visited the historic parks at the Petaluma Adobe and at Fort Ross. I drove over the mountains from the Warm Springs Dam at the head of the Dry Creek Valley out to Stewart's Point through the Kashaya Rancheria, and camped at the Gualala River and explored the estuary on my stand-up paddleboard. And I took the same little craft out multiple times on the Russian River and on the Petaluma River from north of town all the way down to Lakeville. I paddled through the Dixon Ranch wetland restoration at the mouth of Tole Creek to the fringes of San Pablo Bay, and south along the coast from Doran Beach to Estero Americano on the Marin County line. I brought my wetsuit and my snorkel along on our family camping trip up to Salt Point and explored the underwater preserve in Gersel Cove. I hiked to the top of Sonoma Mountain and Mount Burdell, or as close to those summits as the public access trails will take you. I walked with Meg, my wife, to the Three Bridges overlook at Tole Lake and drove with her up to the top of West Sonoma Mountain Road to see the sun set over a sea of fog pouring through the Bodega Gap into the Petaluma Valley and the Santa Rosa Plain. 10 days before Risa started college, she and I camped near the mouth of the Russian River and got up early to make the 15-mile round-trip hike to the top of Pole Mountain. We saw fresh bear scat at the summit, full of seeds from the blackberry thickets that abound on the peak. And on what turned out to be a remarkably clear day. We took in a view of everything from the Farallon Islands beyond Point Reyes, Mount Tamalpais, and Mount Diablo, the whole Mayacamas Range, up to the two peaks of Snow Mountain, east of Willits. And there, nestled in the heart of it all, right up against the long, soft, sloping ridge that gives its place this name, Petaluma. We saw our home. Somewhere along the coast, and the rivers, and the trails, and the highways, I found something I had lost. The soul of the country boy who used to dream of living by the old ways, by trees and herbs and animal tracks, the phases of the moon, the tides and the annual migrations, by the firelight and the flute and the drum. Sense the nearness of a deep place, not far from sorrow and solitude, but neither from joy and community. A place where God joins in the circle dance of her creation, where holiness is the wholeness of all our relations. Because whether we know it or not, we are not separate from the whole tapestry of life and death, of time and eternity. As much apart as the ageless rocks and the ever-surging sea. The gospel tells us that this is the kind of community that Jesus wants to form with us. One where the lost are found and welcomed with grace and love. Because without the lost, this isn't really home. It is an unquiet place, unable to shake the sense that something is missing. Maybe it is only when we admit that we are lost that we can really begin to understand what it would be like to truly come home. Not to some unstable, anxious peace, fenced in with our brittle feeling of competence, dubious methods of control. Not a home propped up with injustice, amnesia, and violence. But one resting on the solid rock of what simply is. So much more wild and creative and resilient than we can ever know. To come there requires the kind of journey that can only begin when we stop what we are doing and look around and admit that we have no idea where we are or how we got here and are almost certainly going the wrong way.